Incoming transmission.
My ancient enemies, the Sea Gullions, have made their move. The Geesians will have to retaliate in force for the glory of the planet Honk. Oh.
The war has begun. The Geesians shall be triumphant. Yeah.
Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Adequate. Our ongoing mission, until we are cancelled and replaced by something far superior, to review every episode and movie of Star Trek in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where many other YouTube Star Trek-based thingy shows have gone before. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, happy Kwanzaa, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Treks and Trekkers. Guten Tagen, mein Herr!
Nimmst du ein Tassateri?
Oh ja, mein Fräulein.
Oh, mein Handy.
Wer ist mein Handy? Springtime for Ducat and Cardassia. Welcome
for the Federation and Bejor. That's far too many syllables.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Trekking Up North. I am your host, Captain Goodwill, and joining me, as ever, is the delectable Yeesian from the planet Hog.
Hog!
Sorry, should we do the Japanese?
Hog,
should we do
get up! Get on the scene.
Should we do the Japanese subtitle version of Trekking Up North?
Oh, yeah.
Yeesian from the planet Hunk!
Nandayo!
Nani? Hunk!
Nani? I sent that to Donna earlier. I literally sent her a voice note that was literally just like, Nani? Nandayo!
He's from the
And she
planet
was like,
Hunk!
what's this in regards to? And I'm like, nothing. Just...
If you are Swedish, he is from the planet Hunk. It is Science Officer Synoiz. And
that makes me sound
notice...
way more cultured than I actually am.
Yeah, you are not cultured.
Rather than Synoiz, it's just like Sinois.
You are less cultured than an England football fan. However, you may
I'm less
notice...
cultured than the average yogurt. So
you're less cultured than a Tory. You may notice
only
something
2
different
weeks left to get the fuckers out.
They're going home. They're going.
Better than them coming, Christ.
Oh, not again. I've got a bet on it. You may notice something different. We are not live this week, and we're at a new time. That's right. We are recorded, and it is currently 8:03 in your future. It is recorded because this delectable Geesian here is putting on a show. Aren't you?
Isn't it crazy? I love it. Like I love that just before we started filming, I was singing you a song that's in the show, but it's like really bizarre because it's a song where I have to deliberately sing it out of tune, and it's just very, very difficult. It's very difficult to deliberately sing out of tune.
Out of tune, yeah. It's
And
incredibly
it's just, like once you can, you're like, oh right, okay. So you just have to like force it through your nose and just try to make it as off as possible. But yeah, it should be fun. The show though.
That's right.
Actually, it'll be happening. Yeah, it starts at 8 p.m. tomorrow. So while you're watching this, I will be performing live in a sold-out show through Newcastle upon Tyne. It's crazy. My first ever show that I've put on myself, and it's sold out, which is crazy. To the point where there's a waiting list of like 5 people or something already. So...
In bloody sane. But that's right, our very own science officer Synoiz is putting on a show in Newcastle as you are watching this podcast. And if you are not watching this podcast, you better be at the show. I will know. I will find
But at least you at home are having a good time tonight. Unlike the poor bastards who are at my show.
There is a 2-drink minimum for a reason. Anyway.
Are we talking about my show or my bedroom?
We're talking about Trekking Up North. Anyway. We are here to review another Star Trek The Next Generation episode. I am sick of wearing this uniform. No, I kid. I didn't wear this last week because I was too busy having a Nigel hemorrhage, apparently. I am okay. I am okay. The doctors do not know what it is, which is scary. But it is not a Nigel hemorrhage. But I am getting confused a lot, so I've put myself down as being the average Tory voter. But we are here.
To be fair, yeah, it's like So basically, the generic Brexiteer. So
dazed and confused. Reform UK. But we are here to review the season 5 episode Conundrum after reviewing the season 6 episode True Q last week. We are just
and I will say
further.
We're not doing the Dabo wheel this week. We're not.
No.
Obviously, we've got a movie next week. The movie next week. But the hilarious thing is the whole. Like, we have removed Next Gen from the Dabo wheel. We tested it was really annoying. We tested it out just before we went live. And we're basically just making sure that it's still working. And it's kind of wonderful. When you take Next Gen out of it, we were seeing episodes that we've never seen spin by on the Dabo wheel before. And you're just like, oh, wow, that'll be amazing. Like, so much Enterprise, so much Voyager, so much DS9, and so much original series. We were like, that I'm looking forward to when we can spin the Dabo wheel again. But although it did unfortunately land on Tears of the Prophets, the season 6 finale of DS9, which sadly it still has as much chance of appearing again, but it is very upsetting that like this amazing episode was missed.
I was emotionally crushed by this landing of Tears of the Prophets because I'm like, it's such a good episode, but then I was like, oh, but we've got next week's film to look forward to with a special guest that I will get to at the end of the episode. However, Synoiz's little performance is not the only little bit of news, because those little boffins in the science lab of the U.S.S. Adequate have been developing a spin-off show of Trekking Up North. That's right.
It's just Maxi Goose.
No, Maxi Goose is what we wear when we're uncomfortable. We are developing a spin-off of Trekking Up North. Very little information can be given. However, I can give you the name, the premise, and that's about it.
I got so excited about this. Like, just to ruin the mystique, we literally came up with this earlier on today, and we're so excited that we're announcing it way before we have everything ready.
We haven't even recorded anything. However, as many of you will know, the Adequate has a cocktail bar on deck 6. But as many of you did not know, the cocktail bar has a name. And that name is The Honk and Plonk. The cocktail bar on deck 6 of my ship is called The Honk and Plonk because we have a lot of geese on board and Synoiz refuses to get rid of them because they are his people. So we have The Honk and Plonk.
They are here because they requested sanctuary. And maybe tried to take over a couple of times, but still.
Yeah, maybe. A couple of
times. They are technically an invading force.
Make it 12 times. But coming soon to the Nerdy Up North YouTube channel will be Trekking Up North, The Honk and Plonk, where me and Science Officer Synoiz...
Honk and Plonk, apparently. This is sounding more like an OnlyFans by the second.
That's the Honk and Bonk. That's the holodeck. We will gather on deck 6 at the Honk and Plonk. We will have a cocktail and we will discuss the minutiae of Star Trek, from technology to culture to alien races. We will get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes Star Trek brilliant, of what attracts so many fans to the franchise, and we will get down and dirty, and we will discuss things at length. And you will be there watching it with a cocktail. So coming soon to the Nerdy Up North channel. When is it going to be aired? Don't know. When is it going to be recorded? Don't know. Are we doing it? Maybe. However...
What are the subjects?
However, we are here to review Conundrum from TNG Season 5. And I've also got a little drinking game for all you little viewers of Trekking Up North tonight. The amount of times I do the Picard manoeuvre, every time I do it, like this, you must have a drink. That is the drinking game for tonight. So every time I do the Picard maneuver, thusly, you must have a drink. Okay?
That's it. In the chat, that's what I want to see. I want to see in the chat basically people pointing out whenever they see the Picard maneuver, just to know that you're not just listening to us in the background. Like
every time this happens, so that's twice, that's 3 times, that's 4 times, you must have a drink. And I want to see in the live chat.
they're already drunk.
Drink!
Goodwill. They're already good. They're already drunk from the example.
Alcoholic beverages, not your 7-Up or Cherry Coke, okay? So, that is the drinking game for tonight. Every time I do the Picard maneuver, have a swig. However, shall we get down to the nitty-gritty of this episode? Because...
Oh, go on then.
This is regarded by the showrunners of The Next Generation as one of their least popular episodes, and an episode that could have been better, shall we say. But before we start analysing it, I'll get into the nice synopsis of the episode and the little captain's log that starts at the end. So, after the crew's memories are mysteriously erased, the computer records indicate that the Federation is at war with the Elysians. Those are the people that do ridiculous car lease deals with ridiculous NPR.
Yeah. They're also enemies to the Geesians because
they're an enemy.
They accidentally stole our web domain. They stole our web domain due to the guy buying it being dyslexic. So we were just like, hang on. That's why we have to have Geesians.biz. that's why. That's our military website.
.geocities. The Federation.
Geesians.tripod.co.uk. That's taken us back a bit.
You've got mail. The Federation is at war with the Elysians, and that the Enterprise has been ordered to attack their command center. And the episode opens with Captain's Log, Stardate 45494.2. We're investigating a series of subspace signals that may indicate intelligent life in the Epsilon Scylla system. We are within sensor range. Ooh. Now, this is a funny old episode, I dare say, because we get a little bit of subterfuge in the episode, and essentially we see that the Enterprise detects a little starship. They try.
Is it a little starship? It's like a little pod, isn't it?
It's like
they basically say it's a tiny. It's like a little thing that has a one life sign within it. So it's basically like an escape pod kind of thing.
But it scans the Enterprise, scans their data banks, then matches the harmonic resonance of their computer, and then there is a mysterious green beam that hits the Enterprise, that hits Data, who has been playing 3D chess with Deanna Troi in 10 Forward, right there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the crew have lost all of their memories. They don't know who they are, where they are, or what they are doing there.
And it is. I actually think this is a very good episode. I kind of agree.
Yes.
We'll discuss later about like ways you could improve it, because there are a lot of ways. But as a concept, this episode is amazing. I mean, just to start with, we get two. Like, this is what I love about like Golden Era Trek is the characterization. Because basically, before the whole thing starts, we get that wonderful 3D chess game between Data and Troi, where it's basically Data and Troi, who we don't see interact that much. Whenever we see Data and Troi interact, it's usually something to do with Spot, like Data's cat. It's, it's that kind of weird thing where it's like, oh, well, she's a woman, so talk about that. Or the episode where, like the worst thing Data ever does. And like, obviously that includes getting his brother killed, I suppose. Is obviously
Tasha, but go on.
Officiating Keiko and Miles's wedding. But that episode there, where he basically has to, he might as well have just stabbed Miles in the chest. But but in that episode, we get him talking to Troi in a kind of counselor view of how do we do this. But
Yeah.
this is the good thing, though. Trek recognizing that all these characters would fraternize together, but we might not have seen this person interacting with this person on the show because they have no need to. And therefore, they slot these little things in here. And it's just the little touches. Like, these are little touches that I think other Trek shows, like later Trek shows, could learn from. Because I think Strange New Worlds does it fairly well, where it just goes, hey, how do all the characters interact? Oh, these characters, they don't actually talk to each other that much, even though we see them all the time.
It's
And it
world
kind of goes,
building.
but what we have is we have Data and Troy playing 3D chess. Data basically points out, oh, hey, I've got you. There's no way you can win this one. And then Deanna does a move that totally stumps him and basically makes, totally and utterly stumps him and makes him just go, hang on, what have you done here? And it's a bit daft because obviously there's no way that a human could probably outthink Data. But what it turns out is that Troy's just like, hey, it's just a random thing. Like I'm doing that because it's not the standard response to the move that you're doing. And because of that, Data hasn't learned it. Like Data
Yeah.
didn't expect it because it's not one of the many standardized things he could do. And it kind of is a pretense to the episode of going like, hey, you're told you should do something a particular way. You're told that, oh, well, when you're in this situation, you do this. And should you always do what you're supposed to do? Which is basically the plot of the episode. So it foreshadows it a bit.
It's also introducing Data to outside of the box thinking, where, as Synoiz has eloquently put there, Data has all moves predicted, but he cannot anticipate wildcard moves. He cannot anticipate something that is so outside of the box that his programming cannot fathom it, because he sees a game of chess as these are the moves that this player will play if I use these moves, so I can already anticipate it. Whereas Deanna Troy goes, I can introduce this wildcard move and it absolutely messes up with his programming for the game, and he's like, oh, you will beat me in 7 moves.
Yeah.
Therefore, the game is over for Data. And I think it's absolutely brilliant where he concedes defeat, but Data is sort of he because he's got no emotions, he learns from it in a logical way. Where Diana goes, I can introduce a move that you cannot anticipate, and like Synoiz said, it is foreshadowing the episode. I think this is to a certain extent, it is a very Deanna-centric episode. In a way, we see a lot of Deanna Troy in this episode, and that is good because I love Deanna Troy as a character. I think she, as well as Dr. Crusher, deserved more screen time on The Next Generation. But the other thing I love, and you referred to this at the start of the conversation, this is the golden era of Star Trek where we see this level of world building, and it is not major, it is not dramatic, it is people going about their day-to-day lives on a starship, because these people cannot leave this, they are on board, they interact every day or every other day with each other, and we just see people going about their daily lives. We see Riker and Ro Laren arguing about training and simulations.
Yes,
And
I love that bit.
Ro Laren has suggested something, but she didn't go to Riker, and Riker is sort of like, well, you would have said no.
She didn't suggest it. Like the reason they're having the argument is because she just implemented it. And then he was like, hey, you can't just do stuff without consulting me. And then she points out the age-old, yeah, but if I'd consulted you, you would have the chance to say no. And then he's like, yeah, but I also have the chance to say yes, and I would have done if you'd consulted me. But instead you haven't. And it's this weird thing of basically them arguing as they're going to the bridge in the prelude to the episode before we get the actual memory wipe. And it's quite good showing their relationship here and then comparing it to what we get later on.
Would you, just a very, very slight tangent, would you compare Riker and Ro's relationship in season 5 of The Next Generation to Mariner's and Ransom's relationship in Lower Decks? where there is a little bit, not will they, won't they, but there is a little bit of tension and sexual tension within the interactions that we see on screen. Because I do, and obviously in this episode we see what happens, but when I rewatch The Next Generation and I see, I mean, season 5 is the introduction of Ro, and she gets her own episode, and I think Michelle Forbes is brilliant in the role of Ro Laren. But we just get this will they, won't they all the way through this season, and I just compare the relationship that they have in The Next Generation with Ransom and Mariners in Lower Decks. And I see the similarities a little bit too much now when I watch them both.
I think it's good though, because it is a typical thing, you know, like it's a trope of like soap opera, serial dramas and stuff like that. And I think I do. I think I like it as a sort of like a Trek fixture of basically going, hey, will they, won't they relationship and stuff. Because Riker kind of, what I particularly like is the idea of Riker and Troy having that as well throughout this episode. Like they have it throughout all of Next Gen.
Yeah.
But in this episode, but it's a different kind of it. And it shows the nuance. It kind of goes like, hey, Riker and Will have this kind of, oh, they're at each other's throat, but under the surface, there's like feelings, or there's like, you know, maybe he doth protest too much kind of thing, and vice versa. And then the relationship with Troy is the fact of they should be together. Like, you know, it makes sense for them to be together, but then they won't be because they decided not to be.
Yeah.
Like they're deliberately making a point not to. It's very different.
All the way through The Next Generation and the subsequent movies, there was always this will they, won't they with Troy and Riker. They had a previous relationship. They do love each other extremely, but they made that decision together not to act on it, whether it be a professional reason, whether it be that they both feel that it wouldn't work because Riker is a big old horn dog, as we see.
Well, we see that.
We see that. But at least that one does have a payoff in the later movies. But it's really interesting to see that, you know, like this is the daily interactions. We get the bridge crew, we get Ro Laren and Riker, and we see Data and Troy interacting, which is really good. And, you know, Data is a bit of a mixologist as well, as we find out, where he's making a alien tequila sunrise.
Well, I quite like this, because basically what happens is Troy wins the chess game, and then she basically says, okay, cool, the prize I want off you is a Sumerian sunset mixed in the traditional style, like by hand, in the way only Data can make it. So it suggests that basically, like we see in Quarks, because do we see it in Quarks? I'm sure we get an instance of them doing this.
I believe, I think so.
I kind of have a feeling that we see a similar thing, and I kind of like hey, this drink exists in the universe. It's not just a throwaway thing for one episode. But yeah, so Data mixes it, and then it's a clear drink, but then when you flick the actual glass, the reaction occurs, and the whole thing, and then the whole thing actually blossoms into this wonderful thing. The annoying thing is, obviously, because they put the CG on afterwards, basically Troy looks away while the thing's still happening, which seems a bit of a shit move, really. Data's perfectly mixed this drink, and then she looks at it, and then looks at it for a second. She's like, oh, that's great, that is, and then just looks away, and I'm like, no, it's not finished yet. Watch the full thing.
But
but after that's happened, the hilarious thing, after that happens, that's when everyone's memory gets wiped across the ship.
Yeah.
And so in the next bit, basically Data and Troy just kind of assume that these are their roles. They don't have any memories. And then Data just goes, oh, well, I'm behind a bar and there's a drink in front of this woman, so I guess I must be a bartender. And it's
really
quite logical, I think.
It's really interesting to see the scene with the bridge crew on the bridge, obviously, forgetting who they are and seeing them. I really admire...
One thing I just want to mention before this, the last bit I want to mention about the beginning, before the memory wipe, is how Picard is, like, demonstrating that what Picard is like when the ship. So basically, the pod appears and then it starts scanning the ship, And he's
Yeah.
like, and Worf's like, hey, should we put shields up? Should we fire on it? And Picard's like, no, we don't know it's hostile. Let's just let it scan us.
Yeah.
And then the scan intensifies like ludicrously to the point where, they go, hey, actually, with this scan, it could be trying to actually read our computer and memory banks and stuff. And he's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's
Put
just
the
like,
shields up. Yeah, put the shields up and like, weapon, engage weapons kind of thing. And then the memory wipe happens. And then afterwards, they find that the ship has been destroyed. So at some point between then and now, someone's fired on it, and all that is left of this pod is debris. But I like that it points out that it foreshadows Picard later in the episode by being like, he's not traditional in the capacity of he's like thinking, he's going, hey, this doesn't necessarily mean what it looks like. It doesn't necessarily mean that this thing is hostile because it's scanning us. Maybe it could be like, benevolent. And that's why he holds off,
We see a lot of evolved mentality throughout the episode from the crew, and this, especially from Worf, I feel. We'll get to that bit later on, but when
this is the good thing, because with Worf in this episode, we get to see what Worf would be like.
Yeah.
Without his, his nurture, basically. Like it's in this strange way where he is a Klingon. He is a Klingon. However, the nurture that he's had, the learned experiences he's had, is what gives him his higher morality, or his, I don't know, his control over like his urges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because he's had human parents, because he's had a human brother. And what we see in this episode is what he'd be like and what sort of person, and how suspicious he would be if he was basic Klingon kind of thing. And I love that as well.
Well, when they are trying to ascertain who's in command, and they deduce that they're on a starship and they're on the bridge, and they're trying to deduce who's in command, and Riker looks at Picard and goes, "Well, you've got 4 pips, so
which is one less than Baron."
Well, Baron's got about 17.
But no, I just love the
they are like
the Fairhaven one. I was like, hang on, Baron, has Baron got 5 pips in that episode?
They are like King of Starfleet, or Queen of Starfleet, or Head of Starfleet, or just the overall
them of Starfleet,
the ruler of the Federation, because the amount of pips that they had was unbelievable.
I was just going, Goodwill's not here to set me right, but I was like, is that too many pips? Do admirals even have that many pips?
But we see, Riker just, Picard, this gentleman's got 4 pips, you maybe that, and but Worf goes, well, not necessarily. I'm more decorated.
Wait, he says, I'm decorated also. I'm also decorated, which I love. No, I am decorated as well. That's the line, yeah.
Yeah, so we see that Worf sort of assumes a command role based on his, I can't remember what these got, Baldric?
I genuinely don't know what it's called, but basically the big metal sash he wears.
Yeah.
And it's quite good because we basically get to see what would happen if you took command away, if you took sort of like assumed sort of, social social like conditioning away, where basically Picard does, like, Worf basically takes charge. Worf goes, well, I've decided I'm the bossiest, I've decided that I'm in charge, so he just falls into the leadership role. And Picard, because of his nature, basically goes, okay, well, I can't prove you wrong, so I guess we'll go with that. But then throughout the episode has a natural inclination towards leadership, and then ends up butting heads with Worf because Picard so naturally makes these kind of decisions and makes these kind of, oh, well, actually, we need to do this. And it's wonderful to see, actually.
But we don't see it. This is why I'm making the parallels with certain new Trek, and I'm not again, I'm not shitting on new Trek, but what I'm saying is there is parallels where you say butting heads, but it's not butting heads as in a full-on argument or anything like that. They are all still incredibly mature, composed. They are diplomatic with each other. They are understanding with each other, and they still talk through stuff. So if
it was Discovery, there would have been tears in a fist fight by now.
But what we also see is a new face in the bridge crew that is also displaying 3 pips. And they are just introduced they are just there. They just appear and they start making assumptions and everything like that. Now, I remember watching this episode when it first came out because I have a shit memory for my entire life, but when it comes to Star Trek, I could tell you where I was, what pants I was wearing, and what day on BBC Two it was on. It was crazy. But we see this new face, and I just took it as face value that this was just another bridge officer. I didn't notice that they had, the 3 pips. I just thought it was another commander that maybe does the night watch or something like that. And we see them like trying to decipher what's going on, and they all come up with a plan that they need to make contact with the ship, find out where they are, who they are, what their mission is, and just they formulate a team. Even though they know nothing about each other, they know nothing about what's going on, they don't descend into chaos. They all very maturely just go, we need to find out who we are, where we are, what's going on, and we need to do it in this order. And you see, although they have lost their memories, their natural instincts start to take over. So we see Picard, although he has not assumed the role of a leader, being a leader. We see Worf also being a leader of sorts, but then we see Geordi being the engineer without even realizing that he's an engineer. He's like, oh, I've been able to reestablish communication. I've been able to do this. And then you see Worf taking command where he addresses the ship.
He knows what all of the phaser banks are. He knows what all of the panel in front of him. And we see Crusher there's a weird side plot with Crusher where Crusher's basically in sick bay. Well, I want to go into this late in a bit. But yeah, Crusher's basically in sick bay going, hey, I know how all this equipment works and I know how to heal you. Oh, that I must be a doctor kind of thing. And everyone kind of, and Picard is the one who remarks on how strange it is, where basically it's like, so we can't remember anything about who we are, but we can fully remember, because I even made a note as in to criticize the episode, because the first thing like Riker says is, oh, well, all we know is that we're on a starship. And I'm like, hang on, if you'd had your memory erased, surely you'd be like, what the fuck is a starship? What is this? Like you wonder what bare level you would go down to. Are you just looking around being like, I don't know what metal is. I don't know what, and then obviously what it does is it very much goes later and it goes, oh no, they've been left with all of their knowledge, just not their memories.
It's really weird, and I have personally experienced this where I suffer from short-term memory loss because I had the absolute utter shit kicked out of me in 2005, and I was nearly paralyzed. But what happened was I forgot who I was, where I was, and what I was doing. However, I knew that I was in college, that I was studying crime scene investigation.
Until you mentioned that you were actually a student in the college, I was like, this sounds like a Tory apologies video.
But I knew I was in college. I knew I was studying crime scene investigation. I knew I had 3 days to turn in a paper, but I could not, for the life of me, tell you who I was, where I lived, and where I was at that given moment. And they would ask me, God's honest truth, I was apparently in the ambulance, and they were saying, the paramedics were saying, what's your name? I don't know. Where do you live? I don't know. What can you tell me about yourself? I'm a student at Middlesbrough College doing crime scene investigation. I need to go home. I've got a paper due in 3 days. It's insane how the brain works. So when you see stuff like this, where it's like, like your core identification memories are wiped, yet your basic fundamental skills, like it's like saying, I'm going to wipe your memory so you don't know who you are, but you can still ride a bike. Yeah. It's insane. And you see this in the episode.
And it is fascinating because it's like muscle memory is one thing, but it's this how everything is divvied up and how like changes to the brain can like do like, if you sever the connections between this memory and this memory, then it can't associate them together kind of thing. Like you get like hilariously one of my friends who I saw at the weekend, he's got that thing where he can't eat coriander because his brain makes coriander taste like soap. It's a really odd thing where basically if you have
Yes, it
coriander,
alters the
like
taste
it's
buds,
a
doesn't it?
yeah, it's a percentage of people, and it's like what the hell? And he's like, is that taste or is that like a neural thing where you just go, no, it just there's something similar that means that this pattern gets confused with this pattern,
But
and
they
your
are,
brain goes, oh, that's the taste of such and such, and
but
you're like,
that's, but from that,
that might not be related, but
like, some might say a disability where your brain
you avoid coriander.
You avoid coriander, yeah. So, oh, I'm so sorry. But from that, we now see the advent of bottles where the smell you intake is transmitted to the brain and dupes you to believing that water that has zero taste tastes of strawberry.
Really?
Yeah, have you not seen those bottles? They've got like, I believe it's scent, but it's basically they can trick your brain into thinking that you are drinking like orange or strawberry water or apple water, but it's just plain water because it's got this like. Chat, please elaborate on this. But I have seen it, and it just. I am like I'm like Thingy from The Simpsons where he gets a moon pie. He's like, "What a time to be alive!" It's insane how they can
wouldn't it be
trick
easier
a brain
to flavor the water though?
Let me have a look.
Like, wouldn't it be easier just to be like, here's a drop of lemon extract, here's a drop of strawberry, or is it like for people who are like, oh, I want the taste of strawberry, but without the massive calories that like
So what it is,
flavoring might have.
It's called Air Up. Not
Oh,
to be confused with Air Up.
Oh, I hate this because it's it keeps coming up on bloody YouTube until my mate gave me his like YouTube Premium, and it's got the most awful advert. It's one of my most hated adverts where it's got this guy doing a fake German accent, being like, "This is not a water bottle," and I'm like, "What is this? Like, please skip button appear," you know? But yeah, I know what this product is, but
yeah, it's the bottle uses scent pods to trick your brain into thinking you are drinking a tasty flavored beverage when you are really sipping plain old water. So it's sort of exploited the, without these people where they have got a different connection in their brain where they go, coriander tastes like soap, cheese tastes like broccoli or something like meat.
I hate being vegan.
But this is the thing.
Actually, they wouldn't have cheese.
This is the thing. There is I believe it's a spider or an insect bite where if they bite you, it permanently changes how your brain processes taste forever.
Wow.
And
so you basically stop liking Coldplay.
I mean, if you liked Coldplay to begin with, I suggest you check yourself into the nearest mental health institution post-haste.
Off to the asylum. Off to Bedlam. I love how this is the weirdest tangent we've had in a while.
Here we go.
We're talking about spiders and flavored water.
No, but it is literally it's the weirdest thing. But it it's a bite and it changes the taste. It changes how you taste stuff.
What if there's a spider that can make you gay?
It essentially what they've said is it makes meat disgusting. Like the taste of meat makes you physically sick. Honestly, guys, live chat comments, have a look, search for it.
What a weird defense mechanism. This is the problem, okay? This is another thing that I want to say about this episode, because it's weird that like something like a spider would have some kind of venom or toxin in it that worked on the brain chemistry of everything. Because you can kind of understand, okay, if you have a spider where when it bites you or something, it means that you don't want to eat it because you have an aversion to meat or something, and it's some kind of defense mechanism. But then the fact is that would work on its natural predators, like tiny, birds and stuff like that. But then would also work on the brains of humans. And it's like in this episode where you're like, hang on, how does this thing happen to all the people, but also Data? Because we're fully used to episodes where it's like, hey, this thing happened that affected all the crew, but Data's not affected because he's, an android. And that was the strangest thing. I was fully expecting Data not to be affected, and then in this episode, he's like everyone else, and you're like, this is
How
not
did they do
normal.
it?
Like it kind of
Yeah.
hints towards this is not a natural event or something.
But we see this new character on the bridge, and they are all trying
That
to
fucking tangent, that was massive.
Oh, I know, sorry, but they are trying to establish who they are, where they are. Computer access is absolutely limited. We see that Riker and Ro pair off to travel through the ship to confirm that
there's no communication, so they are
Yeah.
sent as the survey team to go across all the decks and basically just find people and be like, "Hey, we get a bit before this where basically Worf, they're discussing, oh well, who's in charge and should we do a ship-wide announcement to kind of just tell people to like stay calm." And they're discussing, oh well, we've got to be really subtle with it and really careful with it because people will be scared. And Worf just blurts out a kind of stay where you are, do all of this, and then it cuts to sort of like Crusher and the patient in Medway being like, well, that's not very reassuring, and it kind of demonstrates that Worf isn't a particularly good leader in the situation. But yeah,
he lacks tact.
yeah,
And
he lacks tact, and he lacks like we see with Data, he lacks out of the box thinking. He lacks morality, not morality, but like empathy maybe. And it's a very strange.
But we see.
It's not that. It's
well, no. It's we see Worf taking the Klingon approach when he's in Picard's ready room, and we don't know his name at this point, but this officer and Picard walk in and basically give a rundown that the crew's accounted for. There was no injuries or deaths. We need to essentially establish who we are. And we need to contact, essentially we just need to find out who we are and get, make sure everyone's up and running and get the medical records. And Worf is like, I think we need to make this ship combat ready. And that we need to do
the priority is getting our weapons online.
Yeah, and this is where we see Picard and Worf butt heads, but butt heads in a way where Worf listens to what Picard says. Yeah, it's a discussion, and Worf is like, I disagree. I feel we need to be combat ready and we need to perform a weapons tests in case whoever has done this is coming back. We then see eventually where LaForge is able to recover the crew. Like he establishes a connection to the computer again, and they have a limited. Now, I thought this was foreshadowing here because they ask for a complete biographical breakdown of the crew, and the computer is unable to do that. Now, I thought from watching this, is it because there are some members there that are not the crew?
Well, is that what you actually thought watching it?
That's what when I rewatched it today. That's what I thought, because they ask for a complete biographical breakdown, and then they ask, can you give us a brief rundown of the senior officers, the bridge officers who run the functions of the ship? And then we get a limited, this is Captain Picard, this is Commander Riker, this is Kieran McDuff. And I'm thinking, when they've obviously scanned the computer, have they made sure that like the complete biographical data is not there because they've implanted this like limited amount of data about Commander McDuff, about what the purpose of the Enterprise is and what essentially is going on in the Federation? Do you see what I mean? So like they've sort of sealed off the actual information and forced them to access the information that they have planted within the computer.
What I quite like about this episode is that when you rewatch something too much and you kind of lose all the surprise. Like I had it when I rewatched Buffy last year, where we watched all of Buffy because we were doing it on Nerdy Up North.
Yeah.
And it was difficult because basically I was like, oh, I know this episode. And every episode over like is it 6 seasons it has? Basically every single episode, I was like, oh yeah, I know this one. Oh, I know what happens in this. And I knew all of the beats and I could remember them all. And it kind of made me go, oh, well, I don't want to watch this one because I know I remember perfectly what happens kind of thing. And this was an episode where I saw it and I was like, I have just rewatched Next Gen like last year, but I didn't remember this. I didn't remember the twist. And so, like you're saying, I was still guessing. I was still watching it like a new watcher, being like,
Yeah.
what is the trick? There's obviously something weird going on. Because, like we say, we have this character of Macduff who we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's not new to Star Trek. Star Trek, like what I thought, and I really enjoyed that I was able to do this because I didn't remember the episode, is I was watching it and being like, oh, is he a red shirt? So
Yeah.
are they like, hey, there's this commander that we've never mentioned before, but we swear he's always been there and stuff, and it's like, oh, is this so someone can die later in the episode? Okay, or is this someone so someone can get shot or a panel blows up or something like that? And I was like, okay, that's why they put them in. And you don't know if the writers were that clever, where the writers were so clever that they would be like, that's how people are going to take it. People are just going to assume that it's just a character that we wrote in to be cannon fodder. And yeah, and I got really excited because the more the episode goes on, you're like, finally, we're getting a lower decks kind of thing of going, because we get it, because obviously in the operations of the ship, when we have the random ensign driving the ship, like we do, where we just literally go, hey, the people at the front are just random people that we never get to see, and they're only in one episode ever, and then they get shipped off to another starbase or something.
Yeah.
And so the idea of going, hey, but what if everyone's memories erased and they don't realize that they're just a lowly ensign and they can't get involved in the discussions and stuff, and so that they're actually getting involved in stuff. And that's exactly how I viewed Macduff, where I'm just going, hang on. You're like, obviously, as soon as we got his name, I was like, that's suspicious as fuck, like
He ain't
fucking
Scottish.
Macbeth reference. Yeah.
He ain't Scottish. He's American, and he's called Kieran Macduff. First of all, he ain't ginger. He ain't Scottish. He ain't Scottish looking. If you got a name like Kieran Macduff, I want you to be ginger AF. I want you to look like this without frosted tips. Okay?
Red Flag City. That's what it was.
Red Shirt City.
Red shirt. But no, but I genuinely, and it was kind of cool because it knocked me off guard. Like it made me just go, I know what this is doing. And I wasn't that worried about Macduff because I was so sure that he was just,
Cannon
a red coat they'd written in. But anyway.
The beauty, we will say this all the time, the beauty of binge watching Star Trek is you could watch 930 plus episodes of Star Trek, start at the beginning and not have a good goddamn clue what's going on because you've consumed so much that your brain can only process. There are classic episodes, we all know what goes on, but then you get episodes like this where you're just like, oh, I don't think I remember this one. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen this one. And then you see the twist and you go, oh, right, I get it.
It's this one.
It's this one. But like I said, the way that they do this in the episode would make any Trekkie think he's a red shirt. It's cannon fodder. He's the one where, like Synoiz said, he's going to get blown up in an explosion.
It's a wonderful bait and switch that you hope is intentional.
Yeah. And then we see, when they're reading out the crew manifest, where we've got Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Executive Officer Kieran Macduff, and you're like, Executive Officer? Second Officer Commander William Riker. And then you're going, that doesn't sound right. Has something changed?
In the order, in the order of people. It's like, hang on.
But then, your suspicions start to come at me where you're like, did something change and I've not paid attention, or did something happen in a previous episode where he's been demoted and something's been no one knows, but that's where the first suspicion starts coming in. And what I love though, when they get these, we see a great side of Worf where he realizes that he's not just not in command, that he's just like down in the pecking order.
I've written a note, like it basically, I just want to mention before then that we do get these lovely scenes between Picard and Worf where Worf has taken charge and is doing all the stuff, and then Picard is instinctively going, no, let's not do it that way, let's do it this way. And they're kind of, like you say, they're not button heads there, but they're basically sort of disagreeing. And then it's quite wonderful here where where basically when the thing comes up saying controller, commanding officer Jean-Luc Picard, and Worf is just over his shoulder being like,
shit.
Yeah. But then the best fucking thing is that he just apologizes.
Yeah,
That
it's
there's no
wonderful.
bitterness or anything. There's this wonderful how good Worf is as a person, like instinctively, where he basically he basically just goes, "I'm sorry for doing that," and then Picard goes, "Yep, I totally understand how it happens." Like we didn't
Yeah.
know what we were doing, and it demonstrates again this wonderful side to Picard where he's very diplomatic. He's not, he's not the Kirk. He's not.
It's
I
a
want to say
brilliant
I want to
scene.
say he's not Cisco because Cisco is
No,
pretty headstrong when it comes down to stuff. Like he does
he's
make
very
decisions based upon emotion rather
he's
than
he's very early season Archer in certain things.
yeah.
However, this we see two positives here. We see well, both Worf and Picard are two positives here. Picard, he demonstrates great leadership and great understanding towards Worf. And we also see Worf taking responsibility and accountability for his actions and approaching his commanding officer and apologising straight away for his behaviour. Despite the fact, and let's be honest here, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
He behaved in a way where he assumed that's what he needed to do as a commanding officer, that he was the captain and he should make it was his Klingon side coming out.
Yeah.
The ship should be, but he apologized for that and he took accountability for it, and it is brilliant, and it is a great life lesson for anyone where if you feel you have made a mistake, take accountability, own up, and apologize if you need to apologize. If you are a manager and something happens like that and they are apologizing and taking accountability, you be understanding, you be a leader, and you reassure them and thank them for their honesty. And this is why I love golden era Star Trek, because these are the values, these are the mentalities that were hammered into people of my age, of Synoiz's age, where we grew up with this mentality where if we are butting heads, we have a conversation about it. We discuss it, we don't argue.
I don't know if I agree with you. I don't think it's like a trait of our age per se, like
No,
our
but
generation. I think it's a trait. I think it's a trait of maturity. I think it's a trait of like we've gone through the ringer, we've done all of the stuff, and in our 30s, well, not anymore for me, but it's in our 30s, you kind of just go, oh wow, honesty is the best policy. Like it genuinely, the owning up about something makes things easier for them, because all it takes is basic understanding that other people are not NPCs. They actually all have their own lives. And when you realize, oh, actually, by not telling the truth or by doing this, I'm actually making their life harder rather than just trying to make things easier for me. And it's this wonderful, this is what we want in Trek. This is the rose-tinted glasses of Trek, of going, hey, I want this no money society. I want this anyone can do whatever they want. The only thing that matters is bettering yourself and helping other people to a like combined cause. And look how wonderful it can be when people do this. This like like his vision effectively. And this is a great example of the whole thing. And I think I wonder if a lot of people watch this episode and they go, "Oh, that's so dumb. I wouldn't be like that," or and stuff. Like my dad said something the other day, and it was something that was so not ignorant, but like, and I'm like, wow, that's a horrible way to think. Where he's literally, that whole kind of like, oh well, I wouldn't waste time helping someone if they weren't going to help me, and you're just like going, wow, that's totally against everything I believe in. Sorry, but then you just go, oh wow, people think like that.
People,
And
and
yes,
it's how it makes me realize just how much I learned from Star Trek.
Yeah.
How Star Trek taught me to be a better person, not a better person as in smart and get a better degree and get rich. This is like how to be a better person, a human, how to approach things differently, approach things more maturely, where you don't butt heads, you don't have an argument, you talk things through, you take accountability, you take responsibility for your actions, you collaborate with people and work together for a common goal. And it is a wonderful thing to learn. It is a wonderful thing that we were taught this, and that Star Trek was always educated, like teaching people to be better, but not in a academic way or anything like that, just to be better people. That we as a civilization cannot continue until we learn about tolerance, acceptance, and working things out through peaceful measures, as opposed to all out conflict.
Yeah.
And it is a great mentality to have, and we've discussed this on previous episodes, where when you are a hardcore Trekkie like I am, and this is all you saw, and this is other people's frame of minds, like Synoiz has just said there, you're sort of like, wow, other people think differently and don't think like that. And you could be.
Do you think the reason why we synergize so well with it is because this is what taught us our mentality?
Yeah.
That
I
watching
genuinely believe
this
it.
after school or whatever made us go, actually, let's be like episodes like this where it just goes, don't assume a situation just because of what you've been taught. There's a big discussion coming for that, I'm afraid.
Look at the episode where Data takes command of the Enterprise and Worf butts heads with him, and they have a conversation in the ready room, and they discuss it. Worf apologizes and says to Data, I hope this has not jeopardized our friendship. And Data, even for an artificial being, is so incredibly mature about it, where he's like, stuff like this would never jeopardize our friendship. And it's a wonderful way to be, because we've all butted heads with our friends. We've all had creative differences. What separates you is how you deal with that difference and how you overcome it, and how you don't let it affect your friendship. Because if we are all friends at Nerdy Up North, and we all have creative differences sometimes, but we don't sit and argue. We work them out, and we say, okay, Synoiz has got this way of doing it, I've got this way of doing it. How can we work together so that we can achieve our common goal? And our points and opinions and our ideas are heard and addressed and analysed, and we come up with the best solution for both. And it's not like, well, mine's better because this. It's like, okay, well, let's have a look at your merits and let's have a look at this. And it's a great way to approach life.
It's so deliciously human, and I like the idea of in that particular instance that you mentioned there, we get to see Data being more human than human. We get to see an example of Data, an artificial human, being the best kind of human, and there's something wonderful about that, rather than being a machine. And I think the episode plays on this. But yeah, anyway, let's get back to
the main exposition of the episode is they are able to retrieve the orders of the Enterprise, who they are, what's going on.
Yeah.
So they know that it's the Starship Enterprise, who they are. They're part of an organization called the United Federation of Planets, who has been at war with the Lycians for years. And it has been a devastating conflict, and the Enterprise is a linchpin in a task force which has been ordered to attack the Lycian Central Command Station. And the Enterprise was on their way to attack this. The whole fleet that is with them is depending on the Enterprise, making this spearhead into their territory and taking out this command center. And again, for the audience, this is like, we've never heard of the Lycians. What's going on?
All of this is very this is probably too much for the jump between episodes. It's basically the episode goes, oh, this thing has happened, and therefore this is why we're doing it. It's like, hang on, we're in a war? That's a bit of a jump.
But even the crew are starting to, like Deanna Troi especially, is starting to feel that something may not be correct with the situation. Something is not lying well with her. But that is their mission, and that is what they are doing. They are setting course for the Lycian Command Center. I want to talk about Riker and Ro.
Well,
Throughout
before
this
then,
episode.
I want to talk about like my big criticism of the episode. Like we said last time, space and sensor ranges and stuff don't make sense. This is
No.
massive confusing, like literally the what is it that they say? That they say like, okay, we've got sensor ranges so we can sense like, you know, all of this stuff, we can tell where everything is, and then this probe comes to them, and then they're like, oh well, we need to travel to the Lycian Central Command, and it's 36 hours away, no, 37 hours away, and you're like, hang on, how far away is it? What warp are you traveling at? But it seems a bit weird that you're like, hang on. So with the plot of the episode, we're like, how was the probe that close to you when it's actually that far away
It
from?
wasn't the Lycians. It was the other
No,
alien
but like,
race.
how big is this bit of space? You know,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
how
yeah,
can
yeah.
two places be at war when they're that far apart? Like, you know, or why would it? It's very confusing. But
it's a bit of a continuity issue, but at least it's not Doctor Who levels of continuity where it's like, I'm in another galaxy 50,000 light years away.
I think it's the idea of going, hey, all of this stuff in the episode all makes sense and all these wonderful moving parts that they have kind of skimped on the edges a bit and been like, okay, so say, you know, sustained disbelief, they have to travel for a while, you know,
Yeah.
but they could easily have done it and said, like, actually, warp is offline or something, or it's not 37 hours, it's actually because we can only get, like, you know, impulse, maybe not impulse, but like warp one or something. That it'll take that long. It just seems a bit odd that I'm like, how far out are they?
but I think though they put an arbitrary number on it because they needed the time to develop the relationships on board with.
But that's what I was saying. Make them go
Troy.
slower rather than make the Lycians fucking miles away. You know?
Yeah, even if they just said, you know, they are 36 hours away because. We don't have warp. They are 36
Someone
hours
stole
away.
the lever from the warp thing, so we can't change it.
We are 36 hours away at warp 1. We can only do warp 1 because of.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? A little bit more Trek techie exposition would have gone a long way to make it a little bit more believable. Because if this race, as we find out, is so like low tech, if they are heading at warp 9.9 at 36 hours,
like. How were they at war? They shouldn't have discovered them.
If they're at warp 1, and we'll get to this in the honk and plonk, but like warp scale figures in the 24th century, warp 1 is the speed of light. Warp 9.9 is like 7,500 times the speed of light. So like, if you think it takes 36 hours at that scale, then at warp 1 it would take tens of thousands of years for this one little ship to reach this destination. It doesn't make sense. But that's the Trek techie side coming out with me.
But that's one of my only criticisms of the episode is the fact of going, okay, you failed at the, you know, you were dodgy on the dismount, but everything else about it is fine. But yeah, but it's wonderful. So yeah, talking about Riker and Ro, and what we get in the episode is we get it where Troy's basically there. They meet Troy in 10 Forward.
Yeah.
And she's pointing out like, hey, I think I'm different to the rest of the crew because no one else seems to be able to sense people's feelings like I do.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay. And then that's why she's got this bad feeling because she was just going, hang on, something is not right here and stuff. And you wonder if it's being around certain people is basically making her go, hang on, this is not normal emotions.
Yeah, she can't sort of detect Kieran McDuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then she gets, then when she sees Riker, she just goes, whoa, I've got a crazy feeling about you. And it's quite cute because, you know, we know what it is as like, you know, fans. Is the idea of obviously the both of them are like madly in love with each other and not, you know, and they've decided to step away from it. But I like the idea that this suggests in the Trek universe that basically love is outside of experience. Love is something that's sort of like an innate, like, sensation that's not actually your nurture in a way. And I kind of like that. It's not mystical. But it's the idea of going, hey, she doesn't have her memories at all. They're totally gone at this point. But she still knows that she's in love with this man, and that it kind of plays on her.
It's instinctual
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I kind of like it. I think there's something romantic about it, suggesting that, like, they're soulmates and that it's kind of outside of science a little bit. And we get it where, like, Riker's got an attraction to her, but we wonder if it's just because Riker, just because
He's
she's
a big
hot,
old
and he's a
horn
horn
dog.
dog.
Yeah.
But what we get, though, is we get it where Ro and Riker, because the top layer is gone, all they have is their sort of natural feelings, and they don't realize that actually there's these resentment or these kind of like rank problems sort of coming into play. Ro and Riker basically start falling for each other, and basically they start messing around and they start like sort of flirting with each other and whatnot. And it's kind of wonderful that we get to see sort of like, yeah, we get to see the thing that would never happen between them because of social etiquette.
Yeah, and they do, unfortunately, the horizontal boogie woogie. So Riker has planted his flag on
Is
Bajor.
Riker programmed in multiple techniques?
Riker is the multiple techniques. If he can
Does he
swing
use the
that
trombone,
leg,
do you reckon?
if he can swing that leg around a chair, God help any woman.
Yeah.
Riker! Do you reckon he says that?
No, we're not going here. Okay, so
he went
Troy
there.
and Riker.
But yeah,
Riker.
so Riker. We get to the point 36 hours later where the Enterprise has crossed into Lycian space. But before we do, because is it before? No. Sorry.
No.
So the cross into Lycian space, because I want to discuss the conversation that Macduff has with Worf in his quarters. But I think this
we
is
need
after
to talk
the cross.
about the ship first.
Go on.
Yeah. So basically, we have a crucial bit of the episode, which is basically as they're traveling, they basically come across a Lycian ship, and then this Lycian ship basically just like comes up to them and they scan it, and they're just like, this is really weird. This is a Lycian battleship, and it's pathetic. They basically go, hey, it's like shields wouldn't withstand like one of our like photon torpedoes. Like, its weapon power has no chance of getting through our shields. And Picard is just like, what the hell? Well, we're at war with these people, like, when they seem such a backwards kind of race, like, comparatively.
He starts to question it a lot, like, why are we at war with such a technologically inferior species?
Yeah, and now, basically, and Macduff is there on the bridge, because this is where we still trust Macduff, kind of thing, instinctively, because he's a member of the crew. He's suspicious, but it's like, but yeah, he basically just goes, hey, we have to destroy them because they're going to shoot us. They're going to destroy us if we don't, kind of thing. And Picard's like, no, I don't think we need to. I think let's. And then this ship starts hailing them. It doesn't shoot them. It basically starts hailing them. Macduff is arguing with them, saying, hey, don't engage them, just destroy them. And they effectively miss the call. So they don't answer the call, and then the Lycian ship basically stops ringing and then arms its weapons. And as soon as it arms its weapons, Picard is like, I guess we have no choice. Yep, cool, blow them up.
Now, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
They know that this is a technologically inferior vessel, that this ship could shoot at the Enterprise for days on end and not even make a dent in the shields, right? My question to you is, and I'm going to ask this to the live chat as well and the comments, should Picard have disabled this ship instead of destroyed it? Because if this is such a technologically inferior race and the Federation is at war and he has got questions, should he have just maybe disabled the engines and the weapons as opposed to destroying them completely?
Well, yes. Well, definitely he should have. Like, but that's not the point. Like, the point isn't what he should have done, because we know what he should have done. The point is the situation that he's forced into, where it's the whole episode is about propaganda and about, if you don't know any better about a situation, how do you make decisions about it? Like, and it's this idea of basically him going, I don't know who the Lycians are. I've never met them, but apparently we're at war because I've been told that. And you're like, okay, so because you've been told that, that means you have to believe it's true, right? You know, and that's the whole thing. And we'll get much into that later. But but the issue is that we've got Macduff and the rest of the crew arguing with him. We've got a status on the bridge where they are going, hey, look, we're at war with these people. They're going to destroy us. We need to shoot it. And it's a very heightened emotion where Picard just goes, oh, good, they're powering weapons up. Maybe they've got some kind of super weapon. Because Macduff points out that the probe that they had earlier that made them all lose their memory must have been a Lycian weapon. And this ship, even though the scans can't pick it up, maybe has the same weapon, so it'll make everyone forget everything again and put them all at risk. And so basically, you know, and that's effectively the situation is Picard going, oh, well, we don't know what's coming, so we have to make a decision. So yes, he should have disabled it, but he had people pressuring him to make a decision, and he chooses to destroy this ship and kill all of its crew and everyone on board.
But then we see Picard wrestling with the moral ramifications of the situation, you know, and really questioning why the Federation is truly at war with a technologically inferior species. I love this note because I've got the note here. Comparing his situation to being given a weapon and told to go in a room and kill a stranger, but still wanting to know why. And that, we see Macduff trying to justify what has happened and trying to justify the mission. And we see here that, you know, we see that Macduff is starting to question if Picard will actually go through with the mission.
This is the thing. It's the idea of what we see is we see the amazingness of Picard. That's not even a word, but the amazing nature of Picard, where he is going, I don't trust this. Everything about this whole situation is suspect, and I'm not going to do any of these things. Like, I won't be pressured into believing, you know, this thing that we've been told without any evidence whatsoever. And he's pointing out exactly how are we at war? How is the war not already over if one ship is like this more powerful than this other battleship? Like, if it wasn't a battleship, like, and if it was just going, oh, well, it's just a survey ship or something, then that would make sense. But no, Macduff is like, no, it's a battleship. And it's like, is this the best they can do, you know? And I like that it does that, but it does. Macduff starts going, and this is where we know that there's a problem with Macduff. With this is, if you hadn't seen it already in the hints, this is where you just go no. And what we see is there's a little side bit, but we basically get to see him going to Worf and going, I don't think Picard is good enough to be in charge. I think he's not going to go through with the mission, and he's going to risk everyone's lives and stuff. So I think, you know, when the time comes, you should join with me. You know, that kind of
triggering, you know, a mutiny basically.
Thing. And stuff. And Worf is like, I agree. I also think that it's weird that, you know, we're not attacking these people that we're at war with, you know. And it's the whole Klingon thing, you know.
And as we see the Enterprise speeding through Lycian space to this command center, we see even more inferior ships. And, you know, this fleet approaches the Enterprise and they, you know, data scanning them. And it's like, they are just drones with limited fusion drives and laser weapons. And the Enterprise is just gone. Absolutely blasts them out. And even Riker turns around and goes, that was too easy. But Macduff is continuing this facade that continuing this facade that yes, they've left these because their battle cruisers are speeding towards the command center as we speak, so we need to carry out our order and destroy the command center before these you know, these dangerous battle cruisers are going to come. And you're like, we've already faced one and we just went like that and destroyed it.
You kill multiple at once, basically.
And when they approach this command center, the real Picard starts kicking in, and Macduff is trying to encourage you, you know, torpedoes are ready.
Blow it up, blow it up. Do it now, kind of thing.
And Picard is sat there going, I want to scan this center. I want to scan this station. I want to know what armaments have got and how many people have got. And it's like the most bare-bone, technology that's 100 and 150 years out of date compared to the Federation.
One torpedo would kill them.
Yeah,
but there's 15,000 people on board.
Yeah, 15,000 people, and one torpedo could kill it. And Picard really starts to get, this is not right.
Yeah. And he puts his foot down. He puts his foot down and says, no, we are not doing this. Hail them. And Macduff freaks out. He just goes like, no, we've got to kill them. And then he basically turns to Worf and says, Worf, I'm taking command. I'm relieving like Picard of duty. Worf, fire the stuff. And Worf is just looking at him being like, no, I was up for a mutiny earlier because I thought you had something, but I fully agree that this does not add up like at all, that we would be at war with a race.
I think with Worf,
backwards. Not backwards, but behind.
I think with Worf, it's almost a subliminal honor instinct where his Klingon side is going, there is no honor in slaughtering 15,000 people who are not even firing at you, who are not, do you know what I mean? Like, they are so technologically inferior that there is no honor within this battle. And I believe deep down that the reason why he doesn't mutiny with Macduff is because the Klingon side of him, which we have seen come out to a certain extent throughout the episode, goes, there is no honor within this battle. If my enemy can be quashed with one torpedo, where is the glory in this battle? Where is the honor in killing 15,000 people with one blast and that's it? And I like to think that that subliminally that part of the Klingon psyche is there going, this would not give you the satisfaction that you believe it is. And so he quickly turns on Macduff. But then we see Macduff turn into super strongman and yeet Worf across the bridge. Which
it's
is
amazing because he literally just out of nowhere basically sort of yeets Worf out the way to get to the weapon controls.
Yeah.
And then we have like Riker basically sits up and just gets his phaser out and basically blasts him. There's a picture along the bottom of Macduff being blasted because when Riker shoots him, we get to see a flash of some kind of creature underneath the disguise, where we get to go like, oh, actually, hang on, he's not human. And then we have, I think it's, who is it from the other side of the room shoots him? Is it Geordie or something? I don't know. Someone from the other side of the room.
It's Riker. Is it Ro? I believe that it's Riker, I think, that shoots him, or Ro.
No, but two people shoot him, so I think maybe it's Riker and Ro. But basically, you have two blasts on him at once, and it kind of reveals that you don't get to see the full thing. So there's this wonderful mystique to it.
Yeah,
well, I think it's a wonderful mystique, but it's annoying that we never get to ever hear of this race again. And it's like, oh, it would have been great to see more about them, but it's the tapestry of Trek, But it is great, and with enough phaser blasts, and we don't know what setting these bloody things are on, but it's the fact of they finally managed to knock him down to the ground.
The setting is set to
MILF Hunter. There we go.
Oh, that's the Paul setting. I better turn it down.
No, that's Big Titty Golf Girl.
Oh God, no, that's the Donna setting. Hang on. Oh, I'm all over the place. Help! But we see again a situation resolved. Obviously, the intruder is neutralized, but we see a war has been averted or stopped, or we see that the mentality of Picard has triumphed, and we see that disaster has been averted. I would have loved to, if there was more time, I would have loved to have seen more of the real Macduff / alien and their reasonings and stuff. But I think what disappoints me in this episode, it's all exposition in the epilogue. And again, we are constricted by television runtime of the 1990s, where you have got 45 solid minutes and that's it. I would have loved if there was deleted scenes or anything where we got a bit of exposition from the Lycians or just a little bit more from
I
the
think
alien
there's
races.
so much more that you could have in this episode that it's a bit of a shame because
It is.
we get it, we get the whole like Worf being in command thing and like not butting heads with Picard, and we have the whole like Troy, Riker, and Rose sort of love triangle and stuff, and them finding stuff out that could have been explored infinitely more. And then we have the whole Macduff and the whole conspiracy there, and then the actual overarching A plot. I think it's definitely a two-parter. This idea is definitely a two-parter where
Or
the first part would end with the audience realizing that Macduff is fake, realizing that there's something wrong with Macduff, and then the second episode would go into the whole because one thing we have mentioned is basically there's a D plot or something, but it's basically that Crusher is trying to develop a cure for the memory loss. She's basically going, hey, okay, I'm gonna look. I found a way that every time all these other cases where people have lost memories, they've been able to be brought back using this method. So she kind of works on this method, and then she goes, okay, I need to test it on someone. And Macduff is the one who goes.
yes,
Macduff is the one who goes, oh, I'll be the test subject, and then when she injects him, he starts reacting really badly to it and basically faking sort of like, a shock response to it. So that she goes, oh, there must be a problem with it. I'll go back to the drawing board
yep,
and stuff. Whereas we get the impression that that would have been a perfectly valid cure had it been done on anyone else. And this is the thing, you could do a whole episode of that kind of stuff with Macduff now that the audience knows that it's fake because that he's fake and go into that. Like I definitely think there's a second episode that you could get into on this. But
yeah. Well, I was going to ask, as I always do you think this deserves a second contact?
yes, I mean the okay. I know we've been going on for ages, but I have so much that I need to discuss about this episode, okay, in terms of the themes and things like that. And I think this is such an important theme in Star Trek, like what we get in this, where it's this kind of war. Like what we get is we get two races, okay, that are technologically sort of behind everyone else, but they're equal to each other.
Yeah.
But like, so basically, the race that Macduff turns out to be is called the Saturans. 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 Yeah.
Satarans.
Satarans. Okay.
Satarran. Satarans.
Yeah. So we basically the Satarans, and they are and they are effectively, rather than doing standard warfare, they're basically hijacking other people's technology. So what they do is in the pod at the beginning, it's revealed, was a life form. And that was basically Macduff, this alien creature, beaming onto the Enterprise and then taking control of the ship, either by this beam that he does, either paralyzes people so that he can go around the crew and wipe their memory or something like that, or the beam does the job and then he went in and wiped Data's memory manually or something, and then tampered with all the records. So what they see is that all the records, the reason why they can't unlock this file, but they can unlock this file, is because they've all been placed that way so that they'll feel like they're discovering stuff, but without getting the actual stuff that
Yeah.
would call things into question.
Because data reveals that the subroutine, so the file path has been completely scrambled. So if you try to access this, it doesn't work. However, if you try another way, you get information, but it's actually the information that Macduff has planted within the ship. So the actual information is there, but it's sort of it's almost like, if a broken HTML link where you try to access like this page and it's not there anymore because it's been moved. So it's on a different URL. I've been technical, but it's the what I want to see.
But
sorry, go on.
Sorry. But what I want to say about that though is how genius it is that a race would do that, where they know that they're not powerful enough to defeat their enemies without like a full-on sort of war that's going to be really damaging. So what they do is they basically hijack, and through the power of propaganda. They basically trick other races to do their war for them.
Yeah.
So you get the impression that it's like this happens. This is like a tactic that they have of basically going, hey, there's got to be some kind of name for it or whatever.
It's a
but I just
proxy
thought
war.
yeah, but I just thought it was the cleverest thing in the world. Like the idea
Yeah.
of basically like going one guy can destroy an entire like station because he basically, you know,
It's
does enough, and there's parallels to real life to be drawn there.
it's really interesting, and it absolutely deserves a second contact. And I feel it deserves to be a second contact in Star Trek Prodigy, where it's not that distant from the episode.
Right.
I think it's about 10 years. So you could say they could have a mention of it or something like that, where the Satarans, obviously they failed with the Federation and the Federation knew what was going on, but there is nothing stopping them going to a Klingon ship, a Romulan ship, a Ferengi ship, a Cardassian, wherever they are. I don't know where the Lycian system is. Sod it. Star charts. Lycian system, homeworld Lycian. Okay, so the answer is yes, but there is nothing stopping them hijacking a Romulan ship, hijacking a Klingon ship, and continuing to do that. And what I would like to see though is the Lycian countermeasure to that.
Well, this is the problem. The problem is that it does very much seem like this could only happen once, because the fact is, if it's that easy to kill the Lycian command ship, like, the command station, that it'll eventually work. Like, I kind of think that the second contact is that this happens.
Yeah.
So it's genuinely, so you'd probably get there being like, hey, the Lycians have all been killed because of such and such. But okay, here's random notes that I made, but it's the fact of going, it would be great to have another episode where the crew of the Prodigy or whatever stumble across a ship that has been hijacked in this way. So they basically come into contact with a ship who are like, hey, we're off to attack the Lycians because like we're at war with them or whatnot. And they're like, oh, who are they? Oh, we don't know. We woke up and we had memory loss and stuff like that. And then obviously longtime fans will be like, hang the fuck on.
Yeah.
But then you can go more into what this race of this pop-up character is or whatever. I'm going to that.
I would,
but I like the idea of this episode ending, okay, with Picard giving technology to the Lycians, because it doesn't break the what's it called?
Prime
thing.
Directive.
The Prime Directive, because they have warp travel seemingly. They just don't have very good thing. If he just went, okay, here's the best shielding we can do. There we go.
Countermeasure to it.
Yeah, and not giving the weapons, but being like, hey, here is shields. And then it basically means that the opponents are like, oh shit.
Or even better, he doesn't impart technology. He imparts a countermeasure to this beam. So if another ship arrives, they can deliver a countermeasure to what's happened to them.
Yeah.
To make them regain their memory. Because it's non-violent, and it's like, hey, this race you're at war with did this to us. We developed a way to, have a blue beam, shall we, low tech, a blue beam, that if this happens, because we can't get involved, you are non-members of the Federation, it's a Prime Directive, blah, blah, blah. But if this happens and another ship comes, say a Klingon ship, a Romulan ship, another Starfleet ship comes, you could administer this and it will revert the damage that the Sataran's beam has done. So it essentially might not fix the computers, but it restores the memories of the crew. So they could look at it and go, why are we here? Who is this? They look at it and it's like, the Lycians, we're not at war with the Lycians. I have no memory. And then it sort of disables them before any war breaks out. But he's not giving them Federation technology. He's giving them a way to circumnavigate this new weapon that the Satarans have got.
I actually wonder if it's even simpler than that. Because the fact is, when the crew get their memories wiped, it's their personality and their memories that they lose. It's
Mm.
not their technical knowledge.
Mm.
So you kind of wonder if they would retain knowledge. So the beam, so if they just went, hey, here's a broadcast to all races and all Starfleet, there is this race that are called the Sartorans that are doing this thing. So if you wake up and you've got no memory, if you wake up and you've got no memory and then suddenly you're told to follow orders to go into a war, that means you've been affected by this weapon. Do not
But would
believe
they
it.
remember
And
that?
would that's it? Where would that knowledge be? Is that a
Mm.
personality, like a memory, or is that technical stuff like going, I know how to be a doctor, I know how to like what the control panels mean? So you kind of wonder if maybe the whole plan, this is the only time that this plan was attempted by the Sartorans. I don't know if I've forgotten if I'm doing
I
that
love
right.
the way you say it. Saturn.
Sartorans, but
Sounds like a
if it's
sauce.
not that, I think that's better. Yeah, Sartorans, yeah, though. If it's if it is the first time that they've done this, and it just so happens that it's the Enterprise that is the fly that's trapped,
Mm.
is it doomed by basically just informing everyone that this is a thing, and
Yeah.
that's why no one's destroyed the Lyceums, and that's why they don't get destroyed afterwards?
Or the
But
less boring would be a subspace buoy that just says,
yeah,
avoid this place, you will get beamed.
within a 37-hour radius.
Yeah, just half the Milky Way. But
but
yeah.
But the main thing I want to talk about with this episode, though, is this is wonderful to discuss in terms of propaganda, in terms of
Oh,
the
yes.
impact, the social impact of just lies,
Mhm.
and the fact of that what we see here is we see critical thinking being able to cut through lying. Like,
Mhm.
and you'll see it whenever anyone discusses anything with me, whenever we talk about anything, like the first thing I turn to is Occam's razor, which is the idea of the shortest route to the solution is always right. Well, not always, but most likely right. So if you go, hey, all of these other things have to happen in order for this to make, be the answer, then you just go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like surely, it like surely you would in this episode you would go, oh, it's a trick. That's why nothing adds up. Rather than, oh, this is all very suspect, and why has this happened and stuff, and why did we lose our memory but not this? And everyone, and you can see it dawning on people, but the people who are just willing to just go with it, like Worf, whereas if Worf was in charge at the end of the episode and they hadn't got their knowledge, they hadn't worked out that actually Picard was in charge, this episode would have ended very differently, purely because he doesn't have the critical thinking.
Yeah.
And it's the importance of that and how easily people are brainwashed by the media. How easily we have it where at the moment, like I literally had an argument online earlier, and I know I shouldn't because they're idiots, but I had an argument earlier about a guy who was trying to spread like anti-trans propaganda about the whole like, oh well, they're all rapists and they only do it to sneak into bathrooms and stuff like that. And oh, did you know that like the majority, and it was like, oh well, all these trans people in jail or whatever, sort of like transitioning to sort of like molest women and stuff in the women's prison, and oh the suicide rate for bloody the unaliving rate for I've said it now, the unaliving rate for like sort of trans people after surgery is like sky high and stuff. And I was like going, okay, so let's flip that on its head. God, this is so dumb. Let's flip this on the head. So what you're saying is it's only trans people who are already criminals, so a minority of a minority, that fall into that demographic that you're talking about there. So what we're saying is not all trans people are like sexual offenders. And also, can't it be society that's causing trans people to have a high suicide rate after it and not being accepted by society after that? So effectively what you're saying is you're affirming why we need pride. You're affirming why we need cultural change for this. But this guy had bought so heavily into
Yep.
like the drunk the Kool-Aid effectively of going, but that's what the internet told me and that's what this website said, and people said and that's all I've drunk, that's
But
all I've had, and I don't know anything to counteract it. And this is how America gets things like Trump into power. This is how America gets like well, to be fair, the in America the left wing is going a bit nuts. Like, there's aspects of the left wing where you're like going, okay, that's kind of terrifying how far you're going there. But
But
at the same time, we have the right wing with Trump, and we have things like the Capitol invasion. What was it called? The siege on the Capitol.
January
Yeah,
6 riots. Yeah,
stuff like that. And it's purely because of information on the internet. It's
yeah.
purely because this thing called Q appeared, and then it basically lied to everyone. Because, like, what was it again? I'm sure I saw something a couple of weeks ago where it was talking about how when they actually used critical thinking and they took apart the whole Q thing, you can see the strings. You can see the
Yeah, yeah.
whole, like they were posting. Yeah, they were the people were basically they believed Q because Q was able to predict Donald Trump's tweets before they happened, which
Yeah.
meant that they went, oh, they are connected to Donald Trump. So they assumed that. And then it turned out that actually they doctored the tweets to have an earlier date on them, even though they were posted after Trump had tweeted. But
Yeah.
they didn't check into that. They didn't do the Picard thing of going, hang on, let's wait for more information. Let's check this. And then because of that, on the basis of that, they believed all of the other things. So because they didn't have a memory in this episode, because all they had was like this knowledge that they were at war and all of this stuff, and this knowledge that there's a weapon, we don't even know if the weapon exists. We don't know if the whole green beam was a stun beam, and then the guy went around manually, came over manually, and uh, erased people's memories.
But look at North Korea.
Yeah,
A totalitarian state where all information is completely and utterly controlled, and some still believe that the Korean War is going on because they have not been told any different. Their information is completely controlled to the point where they don't know what's going on. And very much like this episode, very much like Conundrum, they cannot contact Starfleet or the Federation, to say, hey, this has happened, what's going on? They've been completely isolated, and the only information that they have got is the planted information in their computer with the orders that you need to do this. The fleet is depending on you. Millions have died already. Tens and thousands are dying every day. And they have to believe that because they have got no other contradicting information. But what we see here...
And they're specifically, even when they do get communications online, they go, oh, but our orders are to maintain radio silence.
Yeah.
And they don't question that at all. And it's like this idea of people who are sort of, anti-LGBT. It's the idea of these people aren't going to Pride. These people aren't going, hey, I need to maybe I should go and find some evidence. Maybe I should see whether I go to a drag story time and the drag queen is like groping the kids or sort of or reading like inappropriate material to the kids and stuff like that. They don't. They don't go out. They don't break radio contact. They just go, oh, well, I don't need to know that because I've been told.
Yeah.
And that's enough for them. And it's like, if you go to a drag queen story time, it is boring as fuck. I've done them. It is, you don't realize how difficult it is reading to kids. It's wonderful because they love it. The kids all are really engaged. They all love it and stuff. But you're sitting there being like, oh, this is why I'm not a teacher. It's so many people to manage.
My counter argument to the people who constantly go against drag story time, I'm like, you go do it. Because you won't. These people are dedicating their time, their effort to doing this. What are you doing? You are sat on your ass slagging them off for doing something positive. Who cares if they're a drag queen? If you care so much, get off your ass, go to the school, go to the library and read. You won't.
Yeah.
So it's there's an element of, oh, drag, but it's also an element of they are jealous because these people look better than them because they are doing something.
I don't know if it's look better than that. I think
No,
it's
I
basically
mean, not
that
like
these
look as if
people,
physically look, but like...
these people are unashamed. Like, these people are unashamed to do this thing.
Yeah.
And it tends to be that the people doing it are the people who feel like they're in a straitjacket. And it's a straitjacket the society has given them. Straight, obviously, there is a pun. And it's this idea of going, oh, I don't like it, it's different, therefore it's evil. I mean, the scariest thing, okay, we this literally happened earlier today, is that someone posted a friend of a drag queen, posted a photo of a friend of mine, and it was literally as part of a meme saying, oh, like, what was it? Like, oh, well, we just want to read to your kids, like, oh, it's all innocent or whatever. And it was basically a meme, basically suggesting that, like, drag queens are dangerous to children. And it was just the strangest thing. And then, and obviously, my mate argued with them on the thread, being like, hey, what the fuck? Like, why are you using this picture of me? And their argument was, this guy was like, okay, well, if drag story time is like so important and drag queens just want to help, do drag queens like work at, oh,
I think someone's knocking at my door.
oh, should we check?
No.
Shall I continue my monologue while you're...
No. It's okay.
Is it Amazon? I didn't hear anything on the thing, but I probably wouldn't pick it up.
Keep talking.
Yeah, sausage. Anyway, so basically I forgot where I was. Yeah, and they were arguing, this person was suggesting, oh, actually, well, why don't you get drag queens like working at care homes or entertaining people at care homes? And why don't you get them doing all these situations? And obviously, my friend was like, you do. Like, that is a common thing. Like, you would get drag story time where it's like drag queens reading to children and stuff, and the kids get to see a sort of brightly colored, sort of like clown type figure, figure and stuff, and it's all very fun.
Yeah.
And then we also perform at old people's homes and stuff and whatnot, because obviously the old people, while they might be biased, they're still like, oh, it's a show, it's a bit of a cabaret number, and it's a bit of a silly thing, and it's like an entertaining thing. So my mates who work at care homes are like, yeah, I'll get into my drag like once a week kind of thing, and we'll have a quiz night or something, and all the old people love it. And then also pointing out, we also do veteran shows. We also do sort of like military, what are they called? Where you basically have like sort of entertain the troops or whatever while you're in Afghanistan stuff. Yeah, I've forgotten
yeah,
the
I know what you
specific
mean.
term.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
basically, like that is a big thing for drag queens. But no one's mentioning that. No one's going, oh yeah, drag queens are in all forms of entertainment and they're all involved in all of it. We're just going to focus on, oh, they're only doing this reading to kids and it's purely because they, want to like abuse kids or indoctrinate kids. And
But
this
they
person
are
was like,
afraid.
this person was asking this, expecting to get a no. Like
Yeah.
they genuinely thought the response was no. We're oh no, drag queens don't do things at old people's homes or whatever. And we're like, no, just you haven't looked for that information. You're obviously so oblivious about the situation, and that's the only reason you can hold this view, because you haven't checked the rest of the logs. You've like forgotten your memory. All you've got is what the brainwashing that's been given to you through this material. Yeah, it's just nuts that happened today. Sorry, but
No,
it's Pride Month. Everyone goes nuts on Pride Month because
it's
all the haters come out from their fucking rocks.
we love removing them from the Nerdy Up North Facebook community. It's always nice to have a delicious purge every now and then. Speaking
I
of,
was
please,
annoyed at Paul because there's someone posted a really homophobic meme, and it was literally it's going around phone boxes in the UK. Like people are sort of printing it and putting it in phone boxes around the UK. Obviously not persecuted. Obviously gay people aren't persecuted, but you have people literally spreading hate speech around. It's this weird thing where they're going, oh, gays are just they're not really persecuted, and then persecuting them, and you're like, okay, self-fulfilling prophecy. But yeah, and it was all this stuff about like, oh, like, 90% of gay people are pedophiles and sort of, oh, 1 in 5 gay people has an STI and stuff. And it was this big list of stuff. And some dickhead posted it on the Nerdy Up North group. And obviously Paul just immediately went, and you're banned, and that's deleted. And I was like, oh, couldn't we have kept it round just so I could tear it apart and just be like, look, here's all the evidence proving this wrong. But the whole point is that these people don't want to be told.
no.
They had the opportunity. They had the opportunity to be Picard, to look and go, hang on, that doesn't sit right. That doesn't make sense. I'm not just going to believe the nonsense that's fed to me.
They don't
And
want to
they
be
didn't.
told. They don't want to be told because it would then lead to them actually applying some critical thought, and they fear that their worldview, that their opinion is wrong.
It's like when you get dickheads, and we're bringing this to the office again. It's like when you get dickhead co-workers where it can never be your idea. And then you realize that the way to deal with them is to make it sound like they're coming up with it. Or
Yeah.
when they're like, I had one guy who was an absolute dickhead who left, and thank God we were all much happier. But and it was, yeah, you had to realize to set the breadcrumbs for an idea so that he would pick up on the breadcrumbs and then be like, oh, how about we do this? And we're like, wow, what a great idea. But if you suggested that, he would not, he would hate it,
He would
and he'd
shoot it
fight
down.
it to the bitter end. And it's
Yeah.
this thing. And it's, if you say to someone, hey, that's homophobic, or, you know, trans people are not a danger kind of thing, you can't take like 10 isolated examples and then say everyone's in the same bloody bucket. But the problem is, you can't tell people. They have to feel like they've discovered it themselves. They have to feel like they went onto 4chan, they went onto some kind of forum, or they Googled it and then went to a dodgy website, which, like, you know, is, you know, there's no factual basis behind anything they say, but they found it themselves. They read the article themselves. A friend shared it, but they chose to read it, and then then it gets believed. You can't, it's like how you can never change someone's mind by arguing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact of no one ever walks away from an argument being like, oh, I am totally in the wrong. You know, it's very rare that that would ever happen. And as a society, we need to realize that's how people change their opinions, by feeling like they've been proved wrong themselves. Oh, it's confusing, sorry.
No, it's absolutely
Anyway,
fine.
fuck homophobes, fuck transphobes.
Fuck homophobes, fuck transphobes, fuck the Tories. Any
Yeah.
further notes for this episode?
I do quite like the bit at the end where, after, because what we have in this episode is we get a lovely little bit into Riker's psyche, which is basically he has a wonderful scene with Troy where Troy keeps coming back to him and going, hey, sorry, I get such a vibe off you. And then she invites herself into Riker's room, and then Riker basically goes, ah, well, actually, I found this book. And then the signing of the book is basically all my love, Deanna. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, so we're blatantly going out or something. But then Ro turns up, and you can see the look of shock on Riker's face, because he's immediately like, oh, I know who this is going to be. When there's a knock at the door, when there's a signal at the door, he's like, oh no. And then it's Ro. And then Ro comes in going, oh, wow, you know, what are you doing here? And then Troy's like, oh, I was just going. So Troy leaves. And then Riker and Ro basically get it on effectively and stuff. And you just go, okay, this says a lot about Riker, because he is a dick fiend, maybe. I don't know what
He's
you
a bit
call
of a
it.
dog in this episode.
Yeah.
When it comes to he's we know Deanna can feel this. We know, obviously, being empathic, she can feel what he feels. But we also see,
But she can't read his mind, is the whole thing.
Yeah, she can sense his emotions. But we also see a glimpse into Riker when he does not have his memories and all he has got is his inhibitions and his feelings, where he's self-justifying. There might be something with Deanna, but there might be something with Ro. And instead of waiting, seeing if the information can be there, seeing if, you know, he just goes straight for Ro.
Yeah.
He has no inhibitions about that.
He tries to get both of them, though, because he goes in for a kiss with Deanna before the door goes, and Ro comes in, and you're just like, he would happily have just been, you know, seeing both girls at once kind of thing. Like, that is the bare Riker, you know?
But this is what I love, because essentially, and I wish they got into it more in the end, the epilogue, where they are both at 10 forward, Ro and Deanna, and they are clearly talking about Riker.
Once everyone's got their memory back, once Crusher's given everyone their memory back, It's
Yeah.
got them two sitting in 10 forward talking, and Riker walks
Yeah.
in and it basically has a, oh, this can't be good.
Yeah,
kind of.
this can't be good. And I'd wish they'd have dragged him just a little bit more, just pulled him up on his bullshit and maybe say, yeah, you can't justify not having a memory for the actions you have done.
Yeah, because he was morally wrong inside the episode, not like
Yes.
based upon stuff outside of it. He was still literally stringing two girls on at once.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not the end of the world, kind of thing. Like it's not like, a massive problem, but it's still the idea of going, you dog,
Yeah, because if you think about it, think of the ramifications. What happens if, hypothetically, they got the memories back and he was married to Deanna?
Yeah.
You have to think.
What if
how
they had
would
a
that-
kid together or something and they didn't know,
Exactly. How would that have played out? They got crew rosters. Married people sometimes don't share names. Married people sometimes don't wear rings. So the ramifications of his actions should have been further explored at the end of the episode. And they just played it off as a jolly, like, oh, here's two women I've had a relation with.
Yeah.
Oh, they
And
know
he
everything
gets-
about me.
And he gets the cold shoulder from both of them. And it's,
Yeah.
and it's a nice little scene. But like you're saying, it's very much, this is why I think it would be a two-parter. I
Yeah.
think a two-part part of this episode where you literally have the beginning, which is the confusion and the what's happening with the ship. What the confusion, the what's happening with the ship, they're trying to get things back and operational, maybe put some kind of overarching threat in there. And then in the second episode, you have we found out that we're at war. We need to go to this place, kind of thing. And then, and then we realize, oh, Macduff is behind everything, and play it that way. And then it would have given all of these wonderful plots more time to breathe. Because Crusher is in this quite a bit, but doesn't really get anything to
doesn't get
do.
much
The
to
whole
do.
cure thing, it feels like, how sometimes I'll look at something that's too long. I'll look at an episode that's too long and say that could have been done with a gesture. That could have been done with a look rather than having a full scene. Like how I criticize about Discovery sometimes, where I'm like, that was a whole season arc. That could have been a two-parter, like it's that kind of, you're dragging it out because you don't have anything to go in the middle. And this, and loads of the things in this feel like me trimming that down, me going, hey, we don't actually need to see a big thing of Crusher doing all of this stuff and working out a cure and him faking it. All we need is she's got a cure, she tries it on the wrong guy, he fakes being hurt, and therefore she tries something else. But it could happily be a much bigger plot line.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. There could have been a detection of alien DNA. There could have been, he's, he's saying he's human. However, the scanners are not picking up conventional readings.
Yes, Troy can't read him. Why is that? Oh, what kind of race is he? We don't know. The computers are broken. And have it where there's a bit of and that would all be the second episode. So in the second episode, when we, the audience, get it revealed to us that Macduff is fake, we could have the other crew members slowly working it out kind of thing. Worf being the one who always believes in him and just goes, nope, I'm not going to believe any of this because I'm an outsider as well, because I'm obviously not part of the same race as these people and whatnot, and kind of having that kind of apathy. And then at the end, it makes it even more powerful when Worf's like, I'm not joining you because that is wrong. It's not his race that defines him, it's his morality that defines him in the moment of the episode.
It is very frustrating to see these little subplots within this episode not fleshed out as much and being so restricted by the runtimes. I believe if this episode was done today on a streaming service, I think you don't limit yourself to a time. I mean, you look at Stranger Things and each episode is 40 minutes, an hour and 32.
See, I never knew this because I'm not massively into, how everyone else is like, oh, Game of Thrones, oh, House of the Dragon and stuff, and oh, The Boys and stuff. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time that I properly watched a show like that wasn't like The Mandalorian or Stranger Things. But I did notice that with Stranger Things, where this episode is an hour. This one is 30 minutes. This one's 40 minutes. And I was like, it's so strange that's just slipped in. We kind of went from standardized episodes to...
But if you don't have a limitation on runtime and you can make
because you need to fit a slot on a television.
and you can make an episode fully fleshed out that does not feel like padding, I think today this would probably be regarded as one of the better episodes if it was made today, because
this would be an hour and 10 minutes, I'd say.
Yeah.
And it would basically go in, it would flesh out all the things we're discussing. Not massively like a two-parter would, but basically it just goes, hey,
allow
here's a
things
bit
to
more
breathe.
of everything.
Yeah, a little bit more better exposition, but allow subplots like Crusher and the Virus, like Riker, Raw, and Troy Love Triangle, allow them to breathe and allow to discuss the ramifications of the Lycians and the Satarans, the Love Triangle, the Virus, blah, 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 blah.
Do you reckon, based upon that, we're going to see the death of multi-part episodes?
No.
You know, like, if it could be that Stranger Things could just be like, no, Strange New Worlds could just be like, hey, we've got a two-parter, but we could just put an hour 20 episode out, you know?
I don't think so. What we may see quite cleverly, what I am a firm believer. I am not in either camp when it comes to things should be weekly, things should just be all be released at once. Whatever works for that specific show, go for it. For me, what we saw last year with Star Trek was that weekly airings of each episode worked because it went back to the 90s. It went back to the 90s where podcasters like ourselves generated the hype for the next episode. We analyzed, we generated, and then we'd go into the next one and get the revelation, and then the next one, and then
we would speculate. Like when we were trying to work out who the villain of Picard season 3 was, I loved that. We were we weren't massively wrong. We just dismissed the actual answer really early because we were like, yeah, it could do that, but it'd be shit.
But then we got Keiko.
Well, that's it. We got Keiko, but it's this idea that wouldn't have happened because there's so many. I admittedly I hate this, and I'm sorry in the chat if you are, viewer, I guess, if you are this sort of person, but I hate it where a new show gets released at midnight and they watch it at midnight and they binge every episode, and by 5 a.m. they're going to work the next day being like, oh yeah, I watched all the Stranger Things. Oh, I've watched I'll watch the entire like new series of this. And it's like, savor it. That's like getting a full meal, paying a load of money for it, and just scoffing it down rather than taking a bite, waiting a second, and then doing that. Because the fact is, it's like now you need to wait even longer, another year to actually do it, and you don't get that fun discussion with people. You wonder if it's a race, if they're like, oh, I have to watch this before spoilers appear.
Yeah.
Like I have to watch it all in one because I can't possibly stop because I need to know what happens. I can't be patient. And also I need to stop it before spoilers come out. Because it is awful. Like the spoilers that you get online where someone immediately goes, oh, the villain's this. And you're like, really? It's a day.
I think if we're going to do two-parters, or the only series that would fit that at the moment is Strange New Worlds. Technically, we have a cliffhanger, which can be considered a two-parter. But I think if anyone's going to do that, it would have to be Strange New Worlds, because that could bring back that mold. And I think it would fit it beautifully, because you could do it not like, don't clone Best of Both Worlds, because Star Trek tried to clone that again and again in the 90s and it didn't work. It was a season it was a end of season cliffhanger, blah 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 blah. But just have one where it's like episode 4 and 5 is a two-parter, and then you've got that beat for the week where all the podcasters can go absolutely nuts. All the fans can go absolutely nuts. They can speculate and don't release a trailer, don't release promotional images. Just say this is part 1, get it out there, and then do nothing for the second part until it's aired. Don't show any images. Basically, do what you did for the finale of Picard season 3. You didn't show anything at all. Yeah. And everyone loved it. If you do that, the anticipation
was huge because
Yeah.
people didn't know what they were getting. Like, we knew that the next gen crew were coming back, and that's it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, it was a so when it meant that we got to see the ships, when we got to see sort of like, the Defiant, when we got to see Voyager and stuff, you're like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And like little leaks, and then the joy of leaks, whether they're deliberate or not, like knowing Moriarty was going to be in it, like, and just being like, whoa, it just, you savor the taste more. And
It builds that.
I much prefer that, like, like having a weekly thing. And I think the joy of two-parters, like, I think you could do two-parters on Discovery, but Discovery's weird because it tends to have like a flowing, like, tapestry of plot lines. So it's like, while obviously all of them are Michael Burnham, but no, this is a joke. But it's the idea of, it kind of goes, hey, this would be a traditional two-parter where you have an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot, and they get resolved in different ways, but they all kind of connect within the two-parter. And then Discovery would be like, hey, while this plot thread's happening, this other plot thread is happening, and then that one finishes, but this one continues, and that one does that. So it feels like free-flowing. It doesn't feel serialized, as in, this is the episode about this is the episode about this. And it does in places, but effectively it all feels like it's just a little bit of a bigger picture, and you never feel like you
You can't jump
Yeah.
in like we do.
yeah. Yeah,
As
that's it.
in-
You really can't jump in because, I remember I tried to jump into a later episode, and then I was like, wait, that roundup at the beginning, like the sort of previously thing, it was just too much. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, you're trying to fit like 20 episodes of like the series into the thing at the beginning. And I was like, no, this
No.
doesn't work.
I think that is probably a good place to conclude our review of Conundrum. It could have been better. It could have been longer. But overall, a solid episode that does raise issues in terms of brainwashing, propaganda, in terms of morality, and how to handle situations maturely and without emotion, shall we say.
I would say always question. Okay, like the thing is, these hateful people online or whatever, it's very strange that their whole vibe, and it's obviously projection, their whole vibe is, I'm just asking questions. And it's like, you are not. You are not just asking questions. You are not looking for answers. You are being given your answers by someone else, and then you're being tricked into thinking that they're the answers that you came to.
And you don't.
And it's the idea of always just experience something. Never take for granted what someone else says about something. Find out yourself. Imagine if you just went to someone, oh yeah, pizza is rubbish, and that person just went, oh, I'll never try it then. Cool. I will just tell everyone I know that pizza is rubbish. That's what we're getting. We're literally getting people being like, oh, all gay people are rapists, or oh, all gay people are sexually deviant. Most of the gay people I know are boring as shit. The whole thing of just like literally the whole thing of, oh, well, I can't wait for the next Doctor Who. It's got Jinx Monsoon in. And you're just going like, wow, this is back-to-back orgies, isn't it? This is, this is like, and you're just sitting there being like, but the people believe that. They just go, oh, well, it's a sinful lifestyle and it's got this. And it's like, well, have you seen people like that? How many gay people do you know? How many trans people do you know? And as soon as you meet trans people, you just kind of go like, whoa. Like some of them, this is controversial, but some of them you just kind of go, okay, you don't quite know where you are. Like, you're very young, or you're very sort of questioning everything. And that's something we should definitely like allow. We should definitely be like, hey, try it out, do all of this stuff, like, see what fits for you. And a lot of them are kind of like, okay, cool, you're going to change your mind in a couple of months. But then a lot of them, like people I know who I'm good friends with, and you're just like, yeah, I totally get it now. That totally fits, and you wouldn't harm a fly. And it's difficult, but get out there, find your answers, but actually look for them. Don't just find them on the internet, Like, don't just look at the fucking ship's log and go, oh, we're at war, we have to go and kill these random people we've never heard of,
Speaking of where an opinion could cause damaging ramifications, this leads into our portion for next week.
The best segue ever.
Oh!
Oh, it's
Let
the big
them-
one. Oh,
them
oh, it's so
die.
sizable. Oh,
Next week on Trekking Up North, because it's
you're
the
gonna
end of
need
the
some
month.
lube for this one.
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. We are reviewing one of my favourite Star Trek films of all time, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And if you thought that me and Synoiz went deep with Conundrum, you are going to need breathing masks and goggles, because we are going to the centre
Honey,
of the
you're
fucking
gonna
earth.
need lube and poppers basically for this one.
This is gonna go deep. This is going to be
I'm too much of a
our-
fucking child. I can't take it serious.
this is going to be our thing. I forgot the word. God damn it, brain hemorrhage or Nigel
Our,
hemorrhage. Oh,
our
they call
pinnacle,
it
our
our apex.
okay.
Our apex review, because Star Trek 6, guys, is loaded with loads of connotations, references, innuendos. Holy shit. And what makes it even better, we have a special guest coming on next week. We do as well. He is currently featured in season 4 of The Boys. That's right. It's
We
our
all want to
favourite-
lick him.
We all want to lick him.
Maybe
I
it's just
want,
a me thing.
I want a delicious Canadian visa. It is our favourite background actor from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It is David Jones, who will be with us next week to review Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. There will be 2 monster maroons on camera and Synoiz's velour. Because
I feel really bad because David is so lovely, and like I haven't chatted to him for a while because I've just been so busy. So I just and then when you leave like replying a bit too long, and then it gets really
Yeah.
awkward. That's where I am now, and I'm like, oh, can't really
David is
reply
a
to him
lovely-
after like a month and be like, so,
Yes,
so
you
it's gonna be
can.
good catching up with him
David
again.
is a lovely human being, but guys, I implore everybody out there, you need to watch this movie for next week, because I cannot describe to you how beautifully done this movie is. It's got Kim Cattrall
Oh,
as a Vulcan. It is essentially what the first 6 movies should have looked like. It is just so good,
I think-
so good.
what we're gonna do to make sure that you're engaged is we are gonna be bringing back our polls, and I think that we should have multiple polls for this one. I think what
Yes.
we should do
A
to
Klingon
make
poll.
sure that you're watching Klingon, but if to make sure that you're watching it, please join our Nerdy Up North Discord. There's a whole channel for trekking inside there, and what we can do is we'll put the polls there. We'll put them on X or Twitter or whatever it's called now. We'll put it on a pigeon and then throw that pigeon at your house. But yeah, basically tell us what you think about this episode and make sure that you watch so you can engage with the poll. You can give us your opinion and then join us for the live chat next week, because I think next week is the first Friday I've had free for about a month now.
Yeah. We will be live at 8 p.m. BST. We will have a special guest. We will be talking about one of my favorite Star Trek movies of all time. Have you seen this before, Synoiz?
I haven't. The problem is I haven't seen it, and I don't even think I've, because with the other ones I'm like, I'm sure I've seen this. I'm sure I've seen this movie before, and then you get little flashes, and then some of them where I'm like, no, I genuinely haven't. This one,
film,
when I was thinking about this, I was actually thinking about Generations, and I was like, oh shit, I haven't seen this one.
This film warrants a 4K Blu-ray special edition.
Oh,
Just Nick Mayer.
oh, she's pricey.
Nick Mayer, who did The Wrath of Khan, came back for this. This film will probably change your opinion of the Star Trek films thus far, it is the best of the 6, I dare say. It is so deep with its story, and it is an apex. It's going to be an apex review, but this is a universe-changing movie for Star Trek. So please, everybody, where you can, get a DVD, get a Blu-ray, download Dodgy Up North it, watch it, because this is the movie to watch. So next week,
I've nothing else to give.
Nothing else to give. Next week, 8 p.m. BST. However, coming this Sunday to the Nerdy Up North channel is a very special review of a very much loved film. It's Wayne's World! It's Wayne's World! Party time! Excellent! That's right. Nerdy Up North is reviewing Wayne's World this Sunday live at 8 p.m. BST. I'm going to be on. Am I going to be Garth? Am I going to be Wayne? I'm probably going to be Garth because I'm blonde and wear glasses.
This has been a long time since you were on the main podcast. It's been a good few months, hasn't it?
No, it's been a year.
What the That is technically, to be pedantic, that is a couple of months. that is an amount of months.
I think the last one I was on was Serenity.
Fuck, that was ages ago. Yeah, no.
Yeah. It's been a hot minute. I've gained a stone since then. So it's been
I've passed a stone since then, so.
Okay, so this Sunday it will be the review of Wayne's World. We will have Monsters Up North on Monday. We have a few new shows coming soon to the Nerdy Up North channel.
Is Monsters Prom Night this Monday?
I believe so.
I think it's the Prom Night movies. Yeah, cool.
Prom Night movies, yes.
We do have a couple of new shows though. Is it tomorrow morning we have Toons Up North, is it? Or is that coming much later?
Yes. That would
I don't know if I've just spoiled it by announcing that. I don't know if it's a big secret,
possibly,
but you know now.
Who cares?
Sorry, Jake.
If you want to keep in touch with everything that we are doing at Nerdy Up North, please subscribe. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please like this video if you did enjoy it. If you didn't enjoy it, please like it anyway, because I am just a cheap whore. Everything that Nerdy Up North does is in the description below. We're on every single social media channel that you can think of except MySpace, because apparently MySpace is out of date. Screw you. I want literary curses.
I don't think it exists anymore, isn't it?
It does exist. But yeah. I will defend it to the hilt. Love you, Tom.
One thing I want to mention is obviously everyone, it is SunnyCon this weekend, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. So everyone, like you might have been enjoying SunnyCon before this episode because it starts on a Friday. You might have been enjoying my show. Well, no, that's not plausible. You might have been at my show, when you're watching this. But SunnyCon, I am going to be there on Saturday. Is it Saturday we're all going to be there?
No, because I'm not going to be there.
Oh well, no, but the rest of the gang, you're not.
I've been banned from the SunnyCon for blinding people. So, yes.
But yeah, really so I will be there on Saturday. I don't know if I'm there on Sunday because obviously there's a lot of things I need to do. Like once this cabaret show's out the way, Slagatha Christie and the Polari Peril, which you've already missed, and I'm just telling the truth. Fucking hell. Yeah, we've held them up, so they could have come. Well, they couldn't. It's sold out, but they could have come. But we should end the episode. Sorry, I'm rambling. Anyway,
Edging
I've had far too much juice.
Edging up north.
If you're at SunnyCon, I will be there in green, I believe, as the Velvet Snatch. So come along and say hi to me. I think I'm going to take my card reader so that I can actually take some donations if people want to donate. I will have my business cards. You can donate to my Mixed Drag fundraising campaign where the money goes to Pride Action North and the Charlie and Carter Foundation. So yeah, if you do see me there, say hi. If you want to donate something, that would be wonderful. But let's just be nerdy together, hey?
I have done the Picard mover. I have done the Picard mover so many times. I layer about that someone is at least a bit drunk tonight.
It'll be mortal.
I will be there.
Beth will just be like, ah.
I will be there in spirit, just not physically because people value their eyesight. But until next week, though, my lovelies, Treks and Trekkers, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, take care of yourself, look after each other, and as always, live long and prosper.
Miles?
And
Miles?
Miles.
Miles.